Life After the Fight is a show that speaks to everyday issues pertaining to our mind, body, and soul. We will address topics ranging from mental health, self care, fatherhood, family, relationships, and more. Our goal is to encourage listeners to keep fighting through the obstacles, challenges, and struggles. The focal point is simple: seek a fresh perspective, become teachable, and improve your overall health and wellness. If you're craving more growth and development, this podcast is for you.
All right, man. How you doing? We back again.
Hey, I'm good, man. It's good to be back.
Yes. How's things been, man?
Things are good, man. I can't, it was raining over the past couple days. So,
Oh, yes.
It's a lot of
Yes.
mudslides and stuff. I'm just,
Yeah.
thankful I don't live in those areas. But
Man.
otherwise, everything is good, man.
Man, that's a beautiful thing, man.
Everything is good. I didn't wake up this morning to any shells blowing up around me like some people in the rest of the world. So, it's a good thing.
Yeah,
It's a good thing.
We're fortunate. And I can honestly say, and I want to share this with the audience because, I'm all about empowering, but also informing
Gotcha.
and educating. For those individuals out there who have not experienced a colonoscopy,
Yeah.
you need
tell
to.
us about that.
You need to. And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say why. I had mine a couple of weeks back,
Okay.
and I was supposed to have it about a year and a half ago, but doctors switched and all that stuff. So I had to I had to go through the whole referral thing again.
Of course.
But I was able to finally get it. And I can honestly say, even though that was a very terrible process before the colonoscopy in itself, I didn't have any issues or problems, but I did a lot of research before and after the whole entire process. And what I learned about a colonoscopy is that it really helps the doctors see what's going on inside your colon,
Gotcha.
and your colon really is just made up of your large and small intestine. And what a lot of people go unnoticed about is the fact that they would go to a doctor and find out stage 3 or stage 4 cancer because they never really got the checkup that they needed and the colonoscopy that they needed. And so when you look at the whole process, I'm not going to get in and talk about the details, but
That's okay. You're speaking to someone who had one.
I mean, yeah,
Best sleep I ever had. by the
yeah.
way.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, like I said, they when I went in that room and they said, "Mr. Davis, are you getting to sleep?" I said, "No, I'm not." They said, "Oh, you're not." And then next thing I knew, I woke up in recovery.
Exactly.
Like, what? So, but it was good sleep. But what I'm saying is, it was a great experience because I learned a lot.
Gotcha.
I learned a lot about the process, and a lot of men, in particular, they don't get colonoscopies. They don't get their prostates checked. There's a lot of things that they don't get. And as a result, they end up dying early
Right.
because they didn't take advantage of the preventative measures. And so I wanted to just kind of express that to all those men and women. If you haven't gotten your colonoscopy yet and it's time and you're in that age bracket, do so. Because the sooner you do it, it's better to know if there's something to be concerned with or nothing to be concerned with. And then also, too, it just kind of gives you an indication of how your diet has been and the things that you eat and the things that you should eat.
And this has been a public service announcement from Ricky Davis.
So let's get right into it, man. I mean,
No, but I mean, all kidding aside, that was perfect, man. Because people need to know. I think
They do.
Most people don't do these things because of fear,
Yes.
and they're afraid they're going to hear something bad. But let me tell you, if you don't do what Ricky just said,
Man,
then you should be fearful because at some point you're going to hear something bad.
you're gonna hear
So
something
get
bad.
it checked out early.
Yes, that's it. So, man, this topic I think is appropriate because this gives you and I an opportunity to demonstrate to not just our audience, but just people in general, the importance of men really being honest and open with things that we can't see. and that's feelings and emotions. And the topic today is, why do men struggle with vulnerability? I think that a lot of women struggle with men not being vulnerable because they spend so much time trying to figure us out or try to understand us, and we don't help. And I say we because, as a collective man group, we don't do enough communicating and we don't express ourselves enough for a woman to understand. And as a result, we then force a lot of women to try to figure it out or just accept the little that we give. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you think of vulnerability from a personal perspective, how has that been in your life as it relates to your open, honest, true feelings about something that you needed to express to a woman for her to understand you?
Wow. First, let me unpack a few things here.
Let's go.
First thing that comes to my mind is I had to learn that vulnerability is not the weak or scary thing that I thought it was.
Yes, yes.
Or that I'd heard it was. Because usually I'm going to say me, when I was growing up, when I heard the word vulnerable, the translation of that was weak.
Weak. I agree.
And that somehow you're giving something of yourself that makes you less desirable in other people's eyes, less valuable in other people's eyes, when the reality is that you really shouldn't care so much about what other people's eyes are doing or thinking about you anyway.
Yes.
But as I got older, I realized that just like with everything else in life, I had to look at that from a positive perspective. And the positive perspective for me was turning that vulnerability into a strength.
Yes.
And once I was able to turn it into a strength, I looked at it and said, okay, well, this is just viewing myself from an honest place and looking at it from transparent lenses, not clouding it up with what I'd like it to be, but literally seeing it for what it really is.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, the reason, when you say women find it hard to find the vulnerabilities of a man, it's because many times we as men haven't investigated enough in ourselves to even understand who we are.
So true.
So it needs to start first with self-educating and understanding what makes you who you are.
Yes.
Not what the world has told you you are, or your parents, or anyone else, but figuring out what really works for you. And when you figure out what really works for you, it becomes easier for you to communicate that to whomever it is, whether it's another woman, a friend, or whatever. You're able to communicate in an honest way, and the understanding is left on the other party.
Yeah. Yeah. That
You don't have to understand. You've expressed.
You've
Now
expressed
they
it.
have to understand.
Yeah. Now let me say something to piggyback on that. A lot of times, and that was, well expressed, but a lot of times the average man struggles with coming to terms of who they think they are.
Okay.
A lot of men struggle with really wanting to know why they act or respond the way they do. And then a lot of men also struggle with just being honest with self because they know how much they've done that has not been pleasing to the eye. So, my question for you, George, is this: what do you say to that man who, let's say he's in his 50s or 60s?
Okay.
Okay. And the reason why I'm saying that is because this is so important for our audience. What do you say to that man who's in his 50s and 60s and he's been married or he's been in a long term relationship and he struggles with communicating and meeting his woman's needs of understanding. And this is how he's been acting pretty much most of his life. And the woman is at a point where she doesn't know exactly where to go, where to turn. What would you say to that man
Mhm.
in
That,
regards to that?
first of all, I appreciate the question.
Yes.
Second of all, I'm going to say something that the audience is probably going to go, whoa.
Hey, let's have it.
And I'm not saying this in an accusatory way, but the first thing I'd ask that man is, when was the first time he was made to feel fearful or ashamed of who he is?
Man.
That's the first question I'd ask,
Yes.
because that's where it comes from. It comes from a place of fear and shame, and someone made you feel that way.
Somebody. It came from somewhere. Yeah. It came from somewhere.
And I'd like to know where it came from. And chances are, whether you want to be honest with me or not, because I'm going to continue to ask you until you do, you already know. Because most time a person's answer is going to be, well, I don't know where that came from. I'm gonna ask the same question again. They go, well, maybe it came from. I'm gonna ask the same question again, and then finally I go, well, it came from, I was a little boy, and my aunt said, oh, great. So you've been holding this all this time. Can you share with me the circumstances surrounding that? Or better yet, or my mom told me, oh, can you share with me the circumstances around that? Because what I've discovered from talking with men 50, 60, and going back to 40 is that as soon as I ask that question, usually, I'm not going to say always,
Mhm.
but it comes from a place of their mother saying, you know, you just like your dad. Your dad can't this, can't that,
That
the other. So
man.
now I'm going to label you with that. And the unfortunate part is, because you're in a developmental stage, place in your life, you take that on like a badge of honor.
Yes.
Well, the reason I'm this way is because my mama said that I'm just like my daddy, and she defined my daddy as this. So now I'm defined as this. And you didn't take any responsibility growing up to redefine yourself based upon who you are, and not let someone else tell you who you are.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that, man, because so many times we hear about this all the time, and how, and I know you've heard this saying, how a lot of mothers have ruined their boys growing up and have stifled them from becoming the men that they have the potential of being, because they crippled them or they put them down by saying, you're just like your father, or you're no good just like your father, or you'll never be anything just like your father. And what a lot of mothers never really understood is that whatever goes through the eardrums of a person, especially a boy, is automatically going to go through here and all the way down here. So once that is embedded and is dropped in that heart, then guess what? That boy grows into a man, and he starts to embody what he was told from his mother. And as a result, men are very, very known. Men are known to shut down. Men are known to put a wall up. And lastly, men are known to keep their feelings to themselves, because they don't trust a woman, because the last woman they trusted, aka mama, put them down. So they fear from being put down again, and they don't have enough trust in any female because of that.
Now, I'm going to say something to that point that you just made. I
Mhm.
appreciate you saying that. As you were talking, this is a thought that came to my mind. Now, no young male, man, boy is going to say this to their mother. So I'm going to say this to the mothers for them. Whatever you have said to your son, understand that if I were the adult standing behind your son, I would say these words. That little boy is a product of your direct decision making. Say it again. That little boy is a direct product of your decision making. So before you say any other words to
That's
your
good. That's
son
good.
or
Yes.
your daughter, understand that they're here based upon your decision making.
That's it.
Period.
Accountability. You gotta take responsibility and you gotta be accountable. So let me say something in regards to the vulnerability piece. I had to learn growing up that being honest with myself was going to get me further along than not being honest with myself. And what I mean by that is, for so long, I was trying to be something I wasn't because I had identity issues because of how I was raised. So the religion I was in, and then me finally getting out of that religion created a whirlwind of confusion because I was taught things that just were not right in my spirit and didn't make any sense. And so my identity issues really I started to second guess myself as far as who I was and what purpose I served and the belief system of who I really was. And so as I got older and I started to connect with God the way I needed to understand who I was, now the struggle is, how do I catch up? How do I catch up and start to embrace this new me? And how do I become honest? So guess what I started to do, George? And this was so empowering.
Okay.
Instead of trying to make my life sound great, and instead of trying to say all the right things, or instead of saying all the things I thought a woman wanted to hear, let me just be vulnerable and honest so she can see that men got feelings too. Men have a heart too. And it's okay to tell her, I got this wrong. I got this wrong. I didn't do this right. I didn't. And these are the reasons. And there's not excuses, but this is what I'm working towards to be a better me as a result of my past. I realized that being honest was going to either make or break the relationship. And I was okay with both. You know why? Because I pinned a phrase. This was my own phrase. You cannot scrutinize me for my honesty. I started to say that over and over again. I women that challenge and ask questions, I said, you can't scrutinize me for my honesty. This is something I can't erase. This is what I came from. This is what I experienced, but that doesn't define me. What defines me is what I'm doing to be better as a result of my past. So being vulnerable and being honest, it brought me a long way. And then it helped me to understand I no longer have to have a wall up. I no longer have to pretend. And I no longer have to sound like I got it all together. It's okay to not have it all together. You know why? Because it gives me an opportunity to work towards something greater and better. And honesty, I've always learned is the best policy.
Well, I tell you, I'll tell you this, Ricky. As you were talking, and again, it just made my mind go to another place. In being vulnerable, as the man you are, you also have to take on the another hat or role, or whatever you want to call it, of asking yourself this question: is this person and this relationship worthy of my sincere
There you
and
go.
honest vulnerability?
There you go.
And is this person the person that I want to give this to?
There you go. That's it.
Then you have to take responsibility and say, hey, maybe this relationship is, maybe you are not worthy of what I have to offer.
Offer. That's it. And that's being
And
and that's
move
being
on
honest.
to someone else
Someone else.
who
Yeah.
appreciates the vulnerability,
Yeah.
the self-expression that you're giving to them. And I want to also add to it the doubt. We all have doubt.
Always.
Everybody has
Mhm.
doubt.
Definitely.
And understand that whatever you're going through, you ain't the first and you ain't the last.
Last.
You got lots of company. And that's the biggest thing is that most people feel like, well, it's just me. And that's where the fear factor comes in because most people feel isolated and alone. in that process.
There you go.
When you find out, when you talk to other men, you'll find out, man, you're going through the same thing I'm
Same
going.
thing
You're
I'm
going
going
through the same.
through.
You're going through the same. Hey, wait a minute! I thought I was the only one.
Yes.
You're not. You're
Yes.
never by yourself
Never.
because other people are going through the exact same thing. And that's, I'm glad you brought this up in this for this segment of our story because, and I think this is important for our audience to hear that whatever you're going through, you're never alone.
Never.
Other people have been through it and they've lived through it. You can live through it too. You can get through it too. But you have to ask yourself, are you valuable to yourself? Are you worthy?
Yes.
That's where you first have to start. Where's the confidence in you? Because typically, when you're trying to, and it's been said in these terms, the imposter syndrome, when you're trying to be someone else, you're never going to be comfortable because you're not that person. And the person who you're with is never going to be comfortable with you because they're a stranger. So if you show up as you, the only person they have to deal with is you.
Is you. That's it. And also, and check this out, George. There should never be pressure on being you.
No.
Because the pressure is outside of you, because it's the outside noise and the outside distractions. And then you got the pretentiousness of trying to be something that you're not or trying to be like somebody that you're not. That's where the pressure is because it's all an act. It's not real. The realness is who you are. The realness is who you are living, which is inside. That's who you are. There should be never pressure. And that's why I would say to those women that I dealt with in relationships, yeah, I may not have it all together. Yes, I might have gotten that wrong. And I may not have addressed that issue correctly, or I may not even talk to you right. But I can tell you, I got it wrong. I should have said this. I know where that came from. Let's try to work. And like you said, everyone's not worthy of that kind of honesty.
No.
Not everybody's worthy of that kind of vulnerability because you have so many people that want to make it about them and them only, which leaves no room for anybody else.
You know what? Something you said about vulnerability that comes to my mind as well is how is that person defining vulnerability?
Yeah.
Because
what does it mean?
Because you could be vulnerable to them and giving them what you think is vulnerable about
And
you,
it's not enough.
and it's not enough.
Not enough.
So then you have to say, well, hey,
Yes.
based upon what I understand about vulnerability and who I am, this is all I have to give. Now, if this is not what you can accept,
Yes.
then we have another issue.
Okay, so I have a question. I have a question, George, and I think this is one of the best questions as it relates to vulnerability because what do you say to the man who is trying to be vulnerable to his woman and he's trying to be honest and that woman hears him out, listens to him, and then as life goes on, she turns around and uses the vulnerability against him? What do you say to that man who is trying to be honest and open with himself and trying to be open, and that woman takes what he says, throws it right back at him? What do you say to that man?
Wow.
Because I've had that happen to me, George, and I'm gonna be honest with you. That made me not want to open up again to that particular person because that particular person could not appreciate the sincerity of my vulnerability.
I gotta be honest, Ricky. The thing I'd say to that partner, that woman, is clearly you're not my partner, you're my adversary.
Yes.
Because in that case, if you're going to take what I've said to you from the deepest, most sensitive place of who I am, the fiber of my being,
Yes.
and you use it against me, not only you're my adversary, you're kind of, and this is the ish part, you're my enemy.
Enemy. I knew
I'm just saying.
I knew he was gonna say
You're
enemy.
my enemy.
I knew he was gonna say that.
You just attacked
Attack me, yes.
with what I've given you.
And how about this? Not just in confidentiality, but comfortability. I was comfortable with sharing my most inner being with you, and I did it in confidence.
I mean, I don't want to catch you already, but now I'm thinking about that's like me handing you a gun to protect us and you shoot me.
Wow, wow, oh wow, and no, but no. Let me tell you, how it made me feel was like I was being pierced in the heart because I'm like, wait a minute, I just developed all this power and energy to share my deepest secrets within myself to
This is what
you,
you do with
and
it?
and you basically throw it back at me because you feel in some type of way, or I didn't answer or do something you wanted me to do, so you decided to use my past against me. Wow, and let me say this to you, George. It made me shut down. And I could never ever be the same with that person because I'm like, so this is how it is. So we're gonna throw tick for tack on the fact that when you're not getting what you want or things are not going your way, you're gonna use my past against me to do what? Satisfy you and make you feel one step above? Wow. So, like you said, George, who's worthy of a man or a woman being vulnerable?
Right.
Because you have to be able to know your audience in order to be able to be yourself in front of. And that I think is the most important thing these days is know who you're dealing with, and before you decide to express or share those, deepest inner feelings, make sure you are dealing with a person who's qualified and mature enough to handle it and receive it.
Well, Ricky, that puts me in a place of you have to, particularly when you involve yourself in a relationship, you have to have a conversation of where is this person going with regards to you, because not everybody is your friend.
No,
And not everybody's trying to go the same place you're trying to go.
I agree.
I mean, audience, I'm gonna get real candid here so you can listen to what I'm saying. When Ricky and I first met and we were young men, we'd go out and we'd see young ladies, but we saw them from more of I'm gonna call it a young, lustful place and not relationship place.
Definitely.
So if that was all that was there, or that was all that was going on, and we expressed that, then we got exactly what we were looking for. You just want to go and say, hey, that's just an object of my desire for the moment. That's fine. That's cool. If that person's in the same vein as you, then you're both doing the same thing. That's great. But as you get older, I feel like, and I'm glad you asked me the question about what would I tell a 50 or 60-year-old man, is that at that point, you probably have more years behind you, more experience behind you, and much more is at stake at this point.
Yes.
You owe it to yourself to clearly define what it is you want, just in case that person doesn't want the same thing you want.
And you have to make
And that's what exactly, and that's when issues can come about, because you got to make sure that, are we talking about the same thing? Because sometimes you want to be vulnerable with somebody who's like, hey, I'm just here for a good time.
I'm just here for the ride.
And if they're just there for the ride of a good time, that may not be the person you want to be vulnerable to.
So in closing, would you agree that effective communication with your partner, with your mate, is essential to be able to see what level you need to be on or can be on if vulnerability is receptive?
Vulnerability is receptive. I'll say this. You don't necessarily have to be on the same level, but you need to be going in the same general direction.
Exactly.
Because sometimes maybe you're going to be a level higher than that individual. But if that individual has enough care and wherewithal about you, they can catch up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wouldn't discard that individual, but you have to know that that person is trying to go in the same direction you're going. If they're not trying to go in the same direction, then you'd be much better. You'd be doing yourself a great benefit of just cutting ties
Yes.
and moving on by yourself until you find that person who's going in the same direction you're
direction.
going.
Yes.
But if that person is going in another direction from you or opposite you, then essentially you're playing a game of tug of war.
I'm so glad you said that because I said that question in the way I said it because a lot of people look at relationships where we got to be on the same level. No, you're never going to be on the same level.
No.
And that's the reason why I worded it that way because I wanted you to answer it correctly the way you did for people out there. There's never going to be a perfect situation.
No.
There's never going to be a perfect relationship. And you're never going to meet somebody who's on the same level. That's ridiculous. You can be desiring to go in the same direction, but there's always going to be different levels to relationships. So, like you said, if you're desiring to go in the same direction and you guys are willing to catch up and help each other in those areas, one is going to be up here, the other's going to be that. It's going to fluctuate based on the situation circumstance. But if you're going in the same direction, then you both will be an asset to one another, and then you'll be able to go far. And if it's not going in the same direction, then guess what? You know you need to pull out and you need to change your course.
I will leave this with the audience here. If you want to have a loving, progressively forward-moving relationship, think in terms of these two words: harmonious collaboration.
That's good. That's good. Hey, you said it, man. Until we meet
Hey.
again.
It's been great talking to you. Rick.
Life after the fight, man. Let's keep fighting on. Until then, we'll see you guys later.